Hi crafters, Amy here with Amy's Wares, and I'm going to make a couple floral cards today for you. I have a couple of new to me embossing folders from Altenew. You guys know I love the 3D embossing folders, and I'm so excited to share this new to me technique with you. So I'm going to get a smattering of many ink pads from Catherine Pooler out just to play with to do this design. Now this that you're watching is the first time I've ever tried this technique, so you're going to kind of go for a ride with me, learn as I go and see my trial and error and what works and what didn't work so great. I believe it was an Altenew design team member that I saw using this technique. If I can find the video, I will link it below, but I was just so excited to jump in and try this because you guys know I have so many of these folders, and if I can find new ways to use them, then I'm down. So here's a couple photos of the finished cards to show you the direction that we're headed, but I am so obsessed with this. Right after this video, I went and made, I don't know, like 5 more with this technique because I was just so giddy. But anyway, I'm going to cut down these A2 size panels with this stitched edge rectangle die from LDRS Creative. It's going to give it a nice finished edge, and it'll give a nice white border on the card base. So it's US A2 size, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. And I'm just going to open these up and then quickly flip them over and use the debossed side. So this is the first difference. So I'm using the front of my panel on the back of the embossing folder. So I'm lining it up so the picture is where I want it, but this is the first difference because we're going to be using the debossed side instead of the typical embossed side. So I'm going to run these through off screen through my Spellbinders Platinum 6. See, there's the embossed side and then the debossed side, which we're going to use. So I'm just going to get these out. They have that nice stitched edge, but they're ready to go for the next step. So I'm going to get my blending brushes out, and I'm also going to use some new little mini blending brushes that I got from Amazon that worked perfect for this. So I will link all the available products in the video description box below if you expand and scroll down. But basically the first thing I'm doing is ink blending into the recessed portions. So instead of kind of running the brush over the embossed portion that's raised, I'm kind of putting the ink down into the wells that were created on the debossed side. I'm using kind of this red and purple together just to add some drama to the blooms, but I'm going to use one of the little tiny blending brushes with some greens and teals just to fill in the leaves and the stems. So these were perfect to get in those little tiny nooks and crannies, and it does not matter at all that it's a hot mess. You can absolutely come outside the lines because it's going to get covered up by the background. That's the beauty of this technique. You can move quickly and you can get very specific ink where you want it, but it doesn't matter if you come outside the lines. So it's very forgiving. It's a nice technique to kind of give you that wow factor. Maybe you aren't super comfortable with ink blending yet. This will be a huge confidence booster because this is an impressive looking card, and it's really not a lot of effort. And anyone can do it, I promise. So basically you can kind of wiggle in other colors here like I'm doing. I'm putting in the Uptown color just to add a little bit of teal, just because I tend to like a little bit more of a blue over my green. Now here is where the magic happens. I have a pigment ink here. This is Versifying Clair Nocturne, and I'm just brushing it right over. So you can see what it's doing is it's applying the black ink to the flat surface. So all of our ink blending was kind of recessed. So if you don't push too hard or come at an angle, you can kind of just swipe that ink right over to create that crisp black background, and it kind of picks up the little edges and details on the blooms and the leaves, and it just creates such a cool effect. Now my ink pad wasn't super juicy. If you want it solid black, you could just keep going over it carefully or make sure you have a more juicy ink pad. I actually kind of liked the white poking through. I felt like it gave it kind of a distressed look. And the more you push, you can also get some of the black onto the bloom, which again, I liked because I felt like it really tied into the distressed look that matched the background. So it was just so dramatic and cool, and I was so pleased by this. So on the next one, I'm going to start working with the blue colors once I'm done being fussy and making sure I get as much black on there as I want. But I do remember this is pigment ink. So I grab my new heat it tool and start to kind of warm this up dry it out a little bit so I don't just make a huge mess. So I did end up setting it aside to let it dry the rest of the way, but I did use my new Heat It tool just to kind of speed that along. Now here I'm coming in with the teals and blues for these blooms, as well as the green, just to kind of fill in the little leaves and give it some interest. But these little brushes were just perfect. I was so pleased. I actually got these thinking I would use them for little nooks and crannies on stencils, which I probably will, but the one time I tried, I didn't have a great result. So I was a little bit bummed on the best way to use those little brushes, but I am very happy to report that they work great for this technique. So if you want to check out those brushes, they're inexpensive. I'll link them below. I might end up getting more just so I can have 10 different of the biggest size, just so I can have, one for each color family like I do my other blending brushes. But anyway, you can see I have it sped up here. Again, I'm coming outside the lines. It doesn't matter. I've got all the coloring here, and then here is my first mistake. This ink pad suctioned so hard to the paper. I was not thinking at all about the fact that this is a foam pad. So a foam pad is not going to glide over the paper like a felt pad would. So the VersaFine Claire Nocturne was felt. This is foam, so it just latched right onto it and kind of messed it up. I was a little nervous I wasn't going to be able to make it work at this point, but I did stick it out and keep going with it, and it did end up okay. So if it doesn't go as planned, just keep working with it. Worst case scenario, you need to bin it, but honestly, more often than not, I can make my mistakes work, even if it doesn't go as planned. So I just kind of deepened some of the blooms. I don't particularly like the dark leaves that match the background, but whatever, I'm just going with it. Here I'm going to show you the difference in the pads. So you can see the one on the right is felt, and the one on the left is foam. So again, if you're going to try this technique, do a felt pad. So like a Distress ink or a Distress oxide, or like that pigment, VersaFine Claire. So here I have some Brutus Monroe sparkle stuff. I don't know the name of it. I'll link it below. But I'm just further correcting my mistakes, or distracting the eye, if you will, with my splatter here. So I just put some of it and using the brush right from the bottle. It looks like a little mini nail polish bottle. And I'm just putting little splatters all over this panel just to kind of detract the eye from my mistakes. So I put lots of these splatters, and then I do also come in with water because it is a water reactive ink, and then I lay some water and kind of pounce that up just to distress it even further and kind of, detract from my mistakes. So this one, I think, I can't even decide which one of the two cards I ended up liking best, but I was really pleased at how well this one turned around, especially once I added the sentiment. So here I'm just spraying some water into my hand and then laying down little splatters. I let it sit for a minute and then basically pounce it up with a very, very dirty microfiber cloth here. You'll see in a moment. It's shameful how dirty it is, but it gets the job done, and I couldn't find any paper towels near me, so we made it work. But anyway, that's going to finish this portion. Now, an optional next step, if you feel like all the dye or all the ink or all the water and splatter kind of, or even heating it, kind of took away the drama of your embossing, feel free to put it back in your embossing folder once you're done and it's dry, and run it through your embossing folder again. You can just kind of wiggle it to get it into place and then run it through again just to bring back that drama. So again, not necessary, not quite as dramatic on the deboss side anyway, but just an optional step if you feel like you've lost some of that wow factor. So here I'm just kind of wiping out my my folders here. They weren't quite dry when I ran them through, but we'll make it work. So I did run both those through just to add the drama back into the mix before I move on to the next step. So those two panels are done. I'm very excited, very pleased. So I add them to A2 size card bases. That's 120 pound accent opaque. And now I'm shopping my sentiment book. Now this is my storage solution. I have one for my critters, I have one for my sentiments, and I have one for my sentiment strips / Christmas sentiments. So I pick out this awesome happy birthday, and I had also cut out some adhesive back foam that I decided I was going to use. I was kind of deciding between the green and the blue. Let me know in the comments if you think I made the right choice. I did end up going with the blue, but I wasn't sure that green would have worked as well. So here I'm flipping through looking for something different for the purple and black card. I have lots of options, but these are basically just baseball card pocket protector sheets. and I store everything in them. I have two variations. These are the ones that don't have a flap, so you want to be careful not to tip your book upside down. But I do have another kind with my critters that has a little flap, and it will kind of fold over on the top to help hold the little objects in your pockets. So I grabbed this Hugs die also from Altenew, and I'm just going to liquid glue it to the black shadow layer for the back, because I feel like this is a nice small sentiment that won't take away or cover up too much of the one panel. And here I'm just using liquid glue to attach this to the foam die cut, and then I will place the big acrylic block on it just to kind of let that sit a moment. But then basically that happy birthday is a glorified sticker at this point, because I did use adhesive back foam. And here I'm using some little black adhesive squares just so it won't show if you look at it from the side. And then I decided I wanted to turn it into birthday hugs. So I grabbed this stamp set. This is from A Colorful Life Designs. I will link that as well below. If you do shop there, she has a few of these stamp sets and obviously thousands of stencils. And I do have a coupon, AmyFan10. If you shop, you'll save 10% on your complete order. So I'll link all that below. So now I'm basically just putting all the little parts together, pulling off the backer. I did cut down that birthday strip, and I put a little thin foam strip that I get from Amazon behind that, just so that has some dimension as well. I'm trying to stock up my stash with birthday cards because I've really run out recently and I need to beef up my stash. So here you can see I'm removing the backer of that color foam and placing that, and look, it covers up so much of my mistake on that one leaf on the top. And now I'm adding some resin droplets just to add a little bit of additional interest. I have my jewel picker tool and some liquid glue. I'm just going to add that in a smattering in odd numbers, 3 on the top, 2 on the bottom. And that's basically going to finish the design. So I am so stoked with how this turned out. And I'm so pleased to have another way or another technique to use all these embossing folders that I've been collecting. So I hope you found this helpful. If you did, please hit the thumbs up and consider subscribing. I will link everything below. If you do follow my links, it's no additional cost to you, and it really does help me out. So I appreciate it. Thanks so much for spending time with me today. I'll catch you next time. Bye.